All right, 6:12. All right. The lawn guy's here and all is well.
The lawn guy's here. It's August 30th, the year 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 612.
Sure is, buddy. I had to give the guy pliers.
You had to give him. You had to give him what?
Pliers. I think his lawnmower was stuck on the trailer.
Oh, well, you know what? Maybe he'll give you a little bit of discount for your cut today, since you're being so handyman service minded. It's a hot but beautiful day here in Overland Park, Kansas. I'm sure it's probably 10 degrees cooler where you are up in Wisconsin as we're getting pumped. We're both tapering. I'm doing Wisconsin 70.3 next week. You're doing the full, because let's just be honest, you're a lot more manly than I am. We'll be headed up there. We'll be headed up there next week. Excited to see everybody. We did last week's Wisconsin preview, race course preview, and had a lot of great feedback on that. But yeah, we're both excited. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to some cooler temps. Also looking forward to some football season. The Vols play on Thursday. Big Ball State, which you never know. We're still the Vols until we prove we're not. Kind of like Nebraska just proved they're Nebraska over the weekend.
Oh my God.
We are still the Vols. That's on Thursday night. Got to make sure I got that hooked up. Who the Badgers play this weekend, buddy?
Illinois State.
Ooh, so you're probably 36-point favorite in that one? Sounds about right.
I don't know, man. We've got one of those teams again. You just never know.
Oh boy, here we go.
You just never know.
Every year you're like, I'm not sure how things are going to go. And then 2 games in, you blow out your first one. Then you usually win your second game, which is sometimes like an out of conference tough game. And then you're like, you know what, dude, this might be our year. I think this could be our year. Of course, I'm a Vols fan. We haven't had a good year since like the late 1990s, but I am optimistic. Hope you guys are optimistic as well as we head into one of the, if not the busiest month of the year in September. We just had Ironman Canada. You got Wisconsin this weekend. You got a slew of 70.3s, Wisconsin, Michigan, Atlantic City, Santa Cruz, Ironman Chattanooga, Ironman Maryland. It's stacked. It is what was a kind of a quiet August. It's about to be a super full September, so we'll have a lot of action coming to you this month. It's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in a triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We'll cover it all. We'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We'll also do race recaps and race previews, but for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I both work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking to the very first 5K or sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between. And we'll use the feedback we get through them and the conversations driven by Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to we'll talk through those sometimes in the podcast. We also utilize our Facebook group quite often. That's Crushing Iron Group. Had a lot of action. The gates are wide open. As long as you answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. But yeah, had a lot of new members coming in. A lot of good, awesome conversations that have been sparked lately as everybody's kind of gearing up, I think, for the biggest part of the year. So be part of that community. Again, you can search that Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. Answer that one simple question. We'll do Q&As in there sometimes, but that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. We're not going to push an avocado mattress on you or some brand new sports drink you never heard of, or a gravity band on you just because someone pays us. We aren't tied to that, and we're thankful for that. And we do have an agenda, though, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. One quick thing I do have to say. This is what I think about the Badgers real quick. We do have probably one of the best running back rooms in the country. We have a great offensive line. Great offensive line. I think our defense is going to be stellar as usual. It's going to come down. If our quarterback, the highly sought after Graham Mertz, has a good year, we could be tough. But I don't know if we have the receivers. But anyway, I want to ask you: is there a product that you would be comfortable sponsoring right now? Not that we would do it, but like, do you have one that that you'd be comfortable just like, hey, this is my jam?
I mean, if I was
Long-term.
gonna flip the shark
Yeah.
and sell out, it would probably be to First Endurance, the company. I would. I mean, just because that's a product that I recommend highly to to almost every athlete that asks about like a drink. You hear a lot about Tailwind, you hear a lot about Infinite, the Scratch. I think you're a big Scratch guy.
I am.
But First Endurance has always been, in my opinion, the one of, if not the leader in endurance sports, kind of carbohydrate refueling formulas. And I suggest it to almost everybody that asks me, just because I've never had a bad experience with any of their products. I've liked some more than others. Like they have. So they have EFS, which is their drink. They're one of their main drinks, the one they started with. Then they have EFS Pro. I'm not a huge fan of the new mix of EFS Pro. I actually tried it. I didn't like as much. Went back to EFS, and I love their liquid shots. I just love everything they make. They're a very thoughtful company. They do a lot of research and have a lot of good advisors on their board. So yeah, if I was to recommend, if I was gonna, hashtag discount code, C26 for 26% off, I would definitely do them.
Well, I would too. If they brought their cucumber back.
Yeah, you were a huge fan of I don't know how they had like cucumber and lemon lime. Now they've got watermelon, which I can totally get on board with.
Oh,
but the cucumber was just not my jam.
Well, it was just smaller, like drinking water, which I like. I don't like that sweet taste. I'm kind of going after a real low sugary, tasty quotient in this race. So I just liked it because it just seemed, it had what I needed, but it didn't like destroy my palate.
Right.
Which is huge for me. I'm going light on the liquid calories, and I'm probably going to go pretty heavy on the food. I've always been that way, so I'm just really, I don't like that getting onto the run when your mouth is absolutely destroyed by sugar feeling. Because then you're forcing shit in.
I'll agree with you. I think I can get away with it for a 70.3 because you're right. The EFS Pro is a lot less sweet and sugary than the regular EFS, and I've even noticed that in some of my rides, longer rides lately. It is pretty sweet, and so then you combine it with, I think like Berry is like their EFS liquid shot, but then they also finally got back their Kona coffee shot, which is actually a nice little breaker for the palate. But yeah, it can be a little bit sweet. I'm not sure if I would stick with the regular EFS and not go back to the Pro for a full, because like you said, like there's just only so much sweetness you can take, and if I'm going to take in some more sweet, it's going to be when I get to the run and I start popping the Coke. So yeah, they make great products. So what are you using? We'll get into our topic of the day, which is about doubt and self-doubt. But what are you using for race day coming up?
My plan is I'm going to go with Scratch again. I've just always liked Scratch. And they have a lighter lemony and orange version, but I'm a little concerned about the mixology of that product, because I shook up a bottle the other day, and then I kind of went back and got it later for my trainer ride, and it was like solidified in there, almost like it reminded me of like a ravioli or something. It had a skin on it. So I think the shake up part is a huge part of that, but I'm just a little worried about leaving something like that in special needs, because I'm going to probably go 3 bottles and then have 3 waiting for me, because I'm going to stay with my plan, and then I'm going to use Cliff Bars and probably supplement with Fig Newtons a little bit, and maybe grab a half a banana out there once in a while. And my thing is, like, again with the sweet, I'm just I literally pour sea salt in my bento box, and I just kind of dip in there every once in a while with my thumb. I do, man. I know it's crazy, but
yeah, that's like the triathletes, like not pixie sticks, but like the fun dip. Go to the baseball game.
Yeah.
You get this like white candy, type stick, and you lick it and you stick it in this just basically straight powdered sugar, and you bring it back out, and then your kids lick it off. But you do that with the salt. That's interesting. That's how often do you clean out that salt dispenser?
A reservoir.
Yeah, reservoir. How often do you clean that out?
Every couple weeks. I'll like top load it. I'll have it nice and clean for the race, though, in case anybody's around.
Right. It's kind of like, I imagine it kind of like a cast iron skillet. You're like, the more you're cooking it, some of it's going to stay.
That's a great
point. Some of it's going to leave. Right. Some of it's going to leave. But overall, it's going to do the job. And we came here to do a job for you. We'll get into our topic. Self-doubt. I wasn't actually going to go this line. I was thinking more along the lines of taper, but I got my rear end up early this morning to hit the pool. And I got out of the pool around 5:55. I was up early. Got to swim in here in the neighborhood. And the first thing I looked at, I got a text from Elise Gallegos, a longtime listener and huge friend of the podcast. And it was just a screenshot from what looks to be the Instagram of Sebastian Kienle, one of my favorite pros of all time. He says very thoughtful things. He seems very even keeled. Get it? Even Sebastian keeled. Anyway, and we've actually referenced this when he talks about in his Instagram post from Hawaii in 2014 when he won. And when Tim O'Donnell got second with the last year they had this race, I think 3 years ago, he came into this race very undertrained after having some foot problems. He did some aqua jogging, but basically biked a ton. Kienle did the same thing when he won this race in 14. Because we often kind of reference this when athletes talk about, just having to race once. And I even talked about it this morning with an athlete. I said, run fitness means nothing in an Ironman if you don't have swim and bike fitness, because it's just your energy is just going to degrade so much that you'll never be able to express it. And that was never more shown more, I think, especially in Kona when you look at the performance that Tim O'Donnell had as a second overall and Sebastian Kienle this year. But anyway, he starts it off and he said his quote, "Doubters don't win, winners don't doubt." And he said, out of all the smart motivational quotes, this is probably the one that I laugh the most about. I have often and still have doubts. 20 days before the race in 2014, I was sitting in front of my laptop screen in our condo at the Royal Sea Cliff, ready to book the flights back home. Royal Sea Cliff is in Kona. He was actually already in Kona preparing for the World Championships. In contrast to the last years, I had the worst ever race at the 70.3 World Championships. I was not able to sleep more than 3 to 4 hours a night. My total running volume in that entire year was under 30K. So I'm not a kilometers to miles, quick guy, but I'm going to guess it's around 18 to 19 to 20, maybe miles a week. That's less than most age groupers will have. And he said, I had to quit during some of our key sessions leading up to the race. I was already planning my comeback for the following year. I just thought it would be good to have this race to learn and be prepared for next year. But I also found reasons to be confident. Then he goes on to talk about his new Scott bike, his wetsuit, how his setup was really great. And he said about 10 days before the race, my wife arrived. She was still working full time back then. I don't know if that flipped the switch, but the last couple of training sessions, I got a little glimmer of hope. And without any expectations, I went into the race, and it soon developed into a dream scenario. I went away from the group after the turnaround. Goodbye, guys. They never saw me again. I just remember that my mind was completely in the moment. And just in the last 10 to 15K, I kind of woke up and realized I might actually win this thing. I absolutely love, again, everything he just said, but he also is the one that said, and we've used some of, I guess, a lot of his quotes, but he's the one that said, if you're totally confident going into race day, you're probably overtrained, because you have to having doubt in the sport is healthy. I think overconfidence is two things. One, false bravado, where you are trying to convince yourself that you've got it, that you've done enough, kind of like with, excessive Facebook posts, or I'm going to kill it, or I'm going to do this. You're like, if you're having to reinforce that to yourself 24/7, you probably have a lot of self-doubt. So you got that in the spectrum. when it comes to too much confidence, or you've done, talking about doing 70.3s or fulls, you've done, 15 century rides, you biked 115 miles and you ran 15 miles off of it. I mean, I always go back, and if I ever kind of pull the trigger and dip my toe into the Ironman Facebook groups, which can be just a hazardous place in general for a lot of reasons. After races, I always go back and look at the people who share their workouts, and have these like just insanely overtrained, irresponsible days of like 120-mile bike rides, and then a 2-hour run off the bike, and then a 3.5-hour run the next day. And I always go back and look at their times. They're always on the bottom 10 to 15% of finishers, not because their athletic ability is lacking, but their decision making and their lack of confidence forces themselves to be in scenarios where they overtrain and overdo it, trying to make up for a lack of confidence. But on the flip side, you and I have both seen, and I think maybe even been in certain scenarios ourselves, where we kind of went into a race feeling maybe undertrained with a little bit of self-doubt, and we're able to kind of pull off a much better than average or even a great race. And we see it with our athletes all the time. And so I think doubt and self-doubt is a great topic. I think we all have it, whether we express it, vocalize it, or, and let people know we have it. Showing up is the biggest thing, because you never know what can happen on race day.
This is true, bud. Speaking of Facebook groups, I was surprised. I hadn't been in the Wisconsin one at all this year. And then I dropped in there the other day, and I was surprised to see a comment from you.
Popped in, man. I always, if I'm going to pop in, I pop in like the last 2 weeks, because that's really when anything good comes up. I was hoping to get a little bit of insight on the Madison, the new bike course. But yeah, I figured I might pop in there. I'm old enough and I've been around the block enough to not get my panties in a wad while reading that, or having a panic attack. So trying to get a little bit of inside intel. I haven't found any, so it was really just a fruitless endeavor.
No, but somebody made a nice post about our Wisconsin preview podcast, and
yes,
you were in there to say, hey, thanks, look forward to seeing you, which I thought was cool. Quick story, when you were talking about Kienle and how he was ready to leave Hawaii, that reminded me of my first year of college baseball. We took a spring trip, went down there. I was sort of a backup shortstop at the time, and our shortstop got hurt like the week before, so I was kind of thrown into the fire my first year. But we went down there, and we were D3 kind of level, so we had to sort of pay for our own trip. And I was like, if I'm going to Florida, we're gonna, and like the whole team was like this, we were just partying a lot. And then our coach, of course, would have game schedule at 9 a.m. So you can imagine how my production was out there. We'd have double headers at 9 in Florida heat after leaving Wisconsin. But the point is, I was absolutely terrible, like to the point where I was 2-3 errors a game, not hitting anything. And all of a sudden I'm playing college baseball and shortstop. And like, I kind of came out of nowhere, and everybody's like, wow, we're screwed this year, because this guy's a shortstop's an important position. But, so anyway, I remember after about 4 days of that, just awful performance, and I called my dad, and I was ready to come home. I was ready to quit. And, I was just literally almost in tears, because I just couldn't bring it together. I was overmatched, and we were hung over half the time, because it was just a brutal situation. I was sunburned, and he just said, hey, hang in there, things will turn around or whatever. And, sure enough, they didn't down there, but I came up north and, kind of got my shit together and had a few more games under my belt, and ended up having an all-conference season that year as a freshman. Or it was my first year. I wasn't technically a freshman, but anyway, I just always remember that, because, it's one of those situations where, like, you never know what can be if you get too much in your head and you give up. And you kind of have it in you deep down, but your head is just getting overworked with thoughts and doubt patterns and all these sorts of things. And it's just sort of like, the unknown is freaking you out too much. And I just like always took that lesson, because it's, whenever things get really hard like that, I always feel like it's about time for a breakthrough. It's like a test or something, can you handle this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going through this? Are you going to be able to pull it together and go forward? Because anytime you're going to a new level in life or triathlon or learning or whatever it is, it gets harder for a while, I feel like. And it's almost like a thing that makes you fight and figure out a way to get through in order to almost earn that next level. And it sounds like that's what Kienle was going through on some level. He was just uncertain, and like his head was just getting too, active. And I love the part about him, when he was on the bike, and the only thing he was doing was being in the moment. And that's the thing, right? I had a buddy who used to, drive around the country a lot, and he started doing this thing where he would always listen to music, and he'd be like looking at the watch going, damn, I got 7 hours to go or whatever. And then for one trip, he said, I'm just going to kind of meditate while I'm driving and just breathe and think about my breathing. He said that trip seemed like it was his shortest trip ever. So I just think that's really applicable to an Ironman race too, is that you can't start thinking about mile 90 at mile 5. You just got to think about mile 6, and just start clicking them off and just being right there and pedal. And that was another thing I learned in mountain bike. They're just always like, just keep spinning. Don't think about it and just keep spinning. And your body can handle it if you don't let your head get too far out of the mix.
I find I loved your baseball story too. And I find there's a huge correlation in the amount of pressure a person puts on themselves and then the amount of self-doubt that creeps in. I think as age group athletes, we live in a freaking pressure cooker 24/7 in life, with business, with relationships, with kids, with just dealing with the world as it is. And then, instead of, continuing on with endurance sports, whatever it is, and using triathlon or running or cycling or swimming, whatever it is, as an outlet, right, to release energy and stress and have fun and get healthy, we start with that. And then with a little bit of success and then comparison and then competition creates this like different kind of relationship where now we're heaping on pressure. Like I've got to beat these times. I got to beat these people. I've got to be on the podium. I've got to do this. And then things just kind of change, right? And then you have this self-doubt, not really of yourself so much, but of the expectations you created, right? From nowhere, right? They're totally unfair, unwarranted, and probably flat out irresponsible. But yet you have self-doubt about those, right? And what I've seen in the past, and with me specifically, is when I remove the pressure of a time or a place or meeting an expectation, and I kind of go into it with the right attitude and to have fun with it and to be kind of in just a positive, healthy mindset. Once you get close enough and in it, right, in the race, things can unfold. Then you can kind of make decisions on how things can really go. But so many people, and especially triathletes, like to plan things, right? Like I remember, kind of similar to your baseball story, I swam year round growing up, and I quit. I was very, very good, and I quit largely because I think I was getting burnt out. But with burnout, it's not just physical burnout. It was also the amount of pressure and expectations that came with the performance. And I hated it. So I left. I still swim summer league, and I'll remember this, my second year of summer league swimming. So if you're not familiar with summer league swimming, like you obviously only swim in the summer. It's a lot more lax. It's a lot more fun. I'd quit year-round swimming, and I was going up against this team that still had 3 guys that were still in my age group that I swam against. That were on the same relay. They were still swimming year-round. Gabe and Josh Phillips, twins, and then David Tillhay. I remember this very, very vividly for some reason. And they were coming. They still swim year-round, super competitive. I had been 2 years removed, but still swimming summer league. And I remember we got on the blocks to swim the 50 free, and I had every intention of still winning. Even though I probably wasn't in good enough shape, I had every intention of still winning. But I wasn't concerned if I didn't win or not, because there wasn't pressure. I had a little bit less pressure because I wasn't swimming year-round anymore, and I thought it would just be cool if I won. Like, just because, like, you know what, they're putting all this extra effort in. I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying myself. Wouldn't it be cool if I won? It wasn't like, you better win or you're not good enough, right, or, you're not putting in the work. So I got up there and it went in by, I think, a second. And I remember this because a couple of years ago, my mom showed it to me on VHS back when we still had those. And how excited I was when I got finished, and then just kind of went on with the rest of my day and the rest of my meet. But I I didn't have any self-doubt, but I also didn't have a huge expectation. Yeah, did I expect to win? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it wasn't because I had heaped on this year-long pressure of having to feel like I had to win every day. And looking back on some of my best races, they almost always, which is fascinating, I think, I almost always went into two of them. One was a marathon. I did the country music marathon. Then one was a 70.3. I did 2 weeks later. I had a bunch of Achilles tendonitis. I was getting dry needled. I didn't know what I could do. I barely ran any. Ended up having a great open half marathon. Then 2 weeks later, barely running in between, had one of my best 70.3 results and was in the top 10 overall. Going into those races, having absolutely no idea what I was capable of. I wouldn't call it self-doubt, but I wouldn't call it overconfidence. And I think there's a happy medium in there for athletes to kind of hopefully wiggle their way into. I'm not expecting to blow the doors off today, but I'm also not expecting to get my blowers blown off, my doors blown off me. I kind of want to be in the middle. I want to be in the moment. I don't know, because you don't know, right? Like we always act like we know what's going to happen on race day and that we should get this, crystal ball success story because you put all this work in, when race day is nothing different than a training day. And even though we can look back and go back through our, training peaks or what kind of log you use to track your sessions, you can look back at 10, 20, 30, 40 sessions where 40 of them fall into, I thought I was going to do awesome today and I sucked, or I thought I was going to suck today and I did awesome, right? And we know that, we experience it, we go through it, and then on race day, we just feel like no matter what, because it's a race on the calendar, that we are, going to be given this opportunity to have our best day ever. But some of the best athletes were, yes, you should expect to do well, but at the same time, going in with massive expectations and massive amounts of pressure just creates self-doubt in most people. And there's a lot of ways you can combat that by, first of all, not creating a space for it in the first place, right? Like, and I love what Kienle said. He was like, I was getting ready to leave. I was already planning my comeback for the next year. And then I remember the interview he did when he won this race, and he said on his interview, I think Mike Riley, he said, 2 or 3 days before this race, I quit his run session because I think he was battling some Achilles problems. He was like, and I quit because I was in so much pain, and I didn't have any idea if I was even going to race today. 72 hours before the Ironman World Championships, the future winner didn't even know if he was going to race.
Wow.
But he got in the water, he swam, he biked, he ran, and he won, right? Because he kind of, I think I mentioned this in the quote he had, was like, I want to go in here and just use it as a day, right? Because that's the thing. We can have self-doubt, we can be overconfident, but you never ever know what the day is going to give you, combined with what your body is willing to do, coupled with what your mind is able to tell it to do. And sometimes you have that perfect storm of the day unfolds perfectly. Your body just has one of those days where it's just clicking, and you're on point mentally and emotionally to where you can make the right decisions, and you're willing to, because I don't think it's a physical thing, right? Telling somebody to go extra hard isn't a physical thing. It's, you have to tell your body to do it mentally and emotionally. You have to be willing to go to that well. So all those things have to line up. And you just never know when that day's going to happen. Could be tomorrow, could be next year. But the thing is you're never going to know.
Yeah. When you talk about putting pressure on yourself, I mean, think about that as like literal. And when you're performing your best, it's like you're compressing your brain and your body, and there's a tightness that comes with pressure. And the best people, it's always like, we have this thing about when you watch our favorite athletes or whatever, it's like, you want them to look like they're trying harder. You know what I mean? Go try, but the best athletes are the best performances are the ones that are most relaxed and fluid and just right there. They're moving, they're not thinking as much, they're reacting and doing stuff like that. The minute you start overthinking it, I was, like, when you're going to, say you're racing Ironman Wisconsin or any of these places and you haven't been there yet, and you start hearing about, the hills at Wisconsin and all these sorts of things. And, the first time we went up there, we heard about them and then we drove the course. And I think that almost made it worse for me because something about being in a car just seems like it's just a worse course. So, but nothing is, like, I really think this is like our head can create these visions, and nothing is usually as bad in person as you think it's going to be. And you start, churning all these thoughts about how big these hills, how scalable they can be or whatever. But when you get out there on a bike, it's just you're just on your bike and you're just riding up it. You're not really thinking about it like that. So I just think we have to I think about that with Ironman in general. Like, you can easily get in your head about it and be freaking out and thinking about all kinds of stuff. But once you get on site, or at least for me, my chill level goes, it just starts, I start leveling off once I'm there around other people that are in the same predicament. You know what I mean? So that's a big thing. And then you were also talking about, back to Kienle and his running and like overtraining and the confidence that can come from overtraining. And I'm not saying it's right, but I think one of the interesting things about what I've been doing is kind of starting late and sort of just making sort of a fast build peak kind of situation is that I haven't had time to really like stress about my training. I'm just trying to focus on what's in front of me and do the best with what I can. And going into this race, it's really a crapshoot, and I kind of like that, and the expectations aren't that high. And I'm just going up there to, like you said, get out there and have a good time, because, the thing about calling something a race is your immediate thing is like, I got to go fast, right? So, but like with an Ironman, it really isn't about that. In fact, you just really have to be more zoned in on your pacing and doing smart things and just kind of thinking about everything, like I said, in the moment, but also as a collaboration of all these miles and how you're going to get there and get it done. And who knows what can happen out there if you're just staying within yourself and just racing a smart race and with no pressure. There's a point when you can be like, damn, I feel a lot better today than I thought, hopefully. And then you just kind of take that energy and that momentum and just keep carrying it through. Because, the one thing about Ironman is, like, if you just keep moving, you're probably going to have a race pretty close to what you hope. But if you're going to be stopping and walking the whole time, you know what I mean? It's like that can really just screw up your whole time, obviously. But it's sort of this moderation approach to race day. If you can kind of just think about an Ironman as a moderate sort of day and just stay with that plan, you're probably going to be all right, and you're probably going to have a pretty decent time. So I think when we get caught up in like the pressure of it and wanting to prove things, we kind of tend to go out of ourselves a little bit and push a little harder than we normally would, and then it creates a whole chain link of failures down the road. So sometimes it's better to be, I don't want to say, well, maybe have a little doubt or not overconfidence, be steady and solid, but, kind of embrace the unknown and realize that it's just, 1 mile at a time.
I think there's that fine line, like what you said there at the end, towards you don't want to have any self-doubt, but you should have a healthy level of respect.
Yeah.
Right. And you should be, in my opinion, if you're going into a race, the best mindset to have is excited and optimistic, not overconfident, right? No, not, just absolutely drowning in expectations and pressure. And I can speak from a personal standpoint. The races that I've done the best at ever in my journey as a triathlete have all come when I had little to no expectations. I just went into it excited for the opportunity and then saw how the day unfolded. Some days, but when you have this expectation to do well, or this output's going to generate, this result, and then you don't see that, it starts to kind of chip away, right? And we use the phrase, body shots, talking about the Wisconsin course. That also comes to like your ability to have mental and emotional strength on race day. If you create opportunities, right, for you to kind of take mental and emotional body shots, at some point, your ability to be resilient, your ability to kind of drum up confidence or troubleshoot or make it through is going to subside, because you're not going to have anything left, right? Like, we again, going back to seeing kind of our training and we know what to expect. It's same things like, happens on a day-to-day basis in life. 1, 2, 3 things like, bam, bounce back. I got this, no problem. Spilled my coffee, done. Running late to school, done. But if like they keep piling up, towards the end of the day, you're just like, fuck it. I'm ordering pizza and having 25 cookies. Let's do this. Like your willpower and your resiliency just crumbles. And it's not because you don't have it. It's because, dude, you can only take so much, right? Right. Until finally, we're not robots, right? We all succumb to, what's that? It's an Ali quote or something. It's like, everybody's going to have plans like hit in the mouth. Or maybe that was Mike Tyson. And that's like race day. But the more kind of and that's one of the biggest things I think triathletes get themselves in trouble with is from 2 weeks out from race day, or even in their peak build, we put ourselves in situations to take shots, right? We go out for these last long rides or runs or swims, and we're like, all right, well, I think based on X, Y, and Z, I should be able to do this. And then you don't do it. Then you think, oh, I'm behind, right? I'm not in good enough shape. I'm not where I thought I was. You know what I should do? Double it up next week. That's what I should do. I'll get it back. This last week of training, I'm going to get it back. I'll do, a 25-mile run to prove to myself that I can do it, because I had that one bad run that was 18, I'm going to do it. And then you have these, we let, right? Just like other things in life. Like every time you open up your phone or do something else and scroll through social media or choose to look at the news, you open yourself up, right? To most of the time, stress, anxiety, disaster, right? Inability to handle, life's challenges and just we do it to ourselves. And triathletes, again, we are the kings and queens of self-sabotage. And it doesn't even start on race day. It happens in the weeks prior, right? When you go into sessions or you have these thoughts or you whip out TriCalc or you look at past results or you look at this and you put yourself in a box. I'm going to do this. I can do this. Nothing wrong with having confidence, but there's also this healthy space where you're like, you know what? I've done all I can do, right? I'm in a better spot than I was 8 weeks ago. I'm healthy, right? Which is honestly a huge deal if you're training for an Ironman, to go into a race with no niggles, no injuries, you're perfectly healthy. Win, check the box. I'm just excited to do this. I've been putting so much work in. I've been sacrificing time with this or that. I've been getting up early. I've been trying to eat right. I've been, paying attention to small things. Let's just go and get excited and have fun. And in the races that I've always in the best as, I was smiling. I used to wear headphones to races, and I stopped because I felt like I got way too much in my head. And listening to music, it would almost pump me up so much to where I got like tunnel vision, and all I could think about was this like perfect day unfolding. If you're gonna do that, do it in the bed before the night before, right? Meditate, visualize, but the morning of, relax, because your instinct is going to be to stress, compound pressure, right? Until you burst. That could be bursting before the swim starts, right? Your goggles pop. Oh my God. You freak out. And instead of being like, okay, I got plenty of time. It's a rolling start. I've got 4.5 hours to find a new pair of goggles. Hell, I can probably Amazon a pair and get them back before I get in the water with these rolling starts. And my day's fine. Versus total panic mode and go in the other direction. So again, we open up ourselves to two things, or in two different directions. One, being the optimist. I don't know what's going to happen, and that's great. The unknown is actually pretty awesome because you don't know how it's going to unfold, and you can make these choices along the way. Or it's got to go great, or this is all going to be for nothing, and I've wasted everything, or I'm such a disappointment. And we can make those choices. And so if you're heading to a race week, you're heading to your final block of training, remember that so much of your attitude is a choice, right? No matter what, your attitude, your approach, your level of excitement, your willingness to apply expectations and pressure to a day that's gonna be so damn unpredictable, that we have those choices. And the more you can lead towards excitement and optimism and I'm gonna have fun, that doesn't mean you can't be a gamer. It doesn't mean you can't go to race and snatch some souls in the run if you want to, but it means you're going to start the day in the right headspace. And for most people, that's where they have to start, is the headspace and from what's going on from the chin up, not what's happening from the chin down.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. When you talked about, I love what you said about resilience, because like to me, it's going to be well documented that my long ride for this race will be like 80 miles. My long run will be around 12. I mean, I get a lot of people obviously, I wouldn't suggest that necessarily on the bike. That's just kind of always been my MO. But the run, I've never really gotten too much further out than that anyway in training. And a lot of people think about, I need to run further and further. But I want to talk about resilience for a second, because to me, like if you're swimming, whatever, let's say, 8 500s or a mixed set or whatever it is. And it isn't always really about the distance to me. It's the ability to get off that wall. And the same goes with running. Like if you have to take a break or something, or, imagine you're walking through an aid station or something like that. The ability to just crank it back up and keep going, to me, is what this is all about. And so in training, when you can kind of train your brain to just, all right, well, I got to get going again. That kind of stuff really is what carries you in Ironman. And I just, I keep telling people, it's like, they feel maybe shelled after a 14 or 15 miler, and it's their long run. And they're like, how in the hell am I going to do this? And I'm like, well, you didn't have aid stations. You didn't have people cheering for you. You didn't have the ability to cool down every mile. You didn't have that race energy. You didn't have all that, fatigue, or you had that fatigue. And then, going into race day with a taper, you're going to be a lot fresher. All these things come into play, and you're strong enough. But I think a lot of times, most times, it comes down to that mental ability to be resilient and just go again, because it's so easy to, you've talked about it a million times, but how good it feels to walk late in an Ironman, and it feels way too good, and you can't get used to it, or else you're going to, keep falling in that trap. But you have the ability to be like, all right, here we go again. And you say that so many times throughout the course of a race, whether on the bike is the same way. Can you keep the stroke going in the water? Just keep going. Just keep going. And you have it in you. Don't let your brain talk you out of it.
And that's I honestly think, and it's kind of how we coach, but it's not totally wrapped up in the fitness expression of the whole day when it comes to, you have, a bunch of different camps when it comes to running. And going back to, like, you have to be mentally and emotionally with it to fight. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we have athletes all the time that, say, I don't know. I'm so frustrated. I can't get it together. I'm like, have you seen your life lately? It's an stress to the max, obstacle ridden shit show. Not on your own doing, but like, I wouldn't have any motivation either, because stress is stress, and you're just trying to make it through the day. So don't take it as like an indictment on your inability to stay committed. You're just tired, right? And you got, going through a 20-minute ride exhausted just to say you get on is like counterproductive, because you're just going to hate being on it. You have to have your wits about you on the run course at an Ironman. You won't have your wits about you on the run course of an Ironman if you are destroyed after the swim and after the bike. You will have no fight left. You want to know why? Because you had to put your gloves on at mile 10 of the bike because you were waxed and toasted from the swim. I got to fight through this bike. I'm already freaking tired. Oh my God. Make my pedal up this hill, grab an aid station. God, my ass hurts. Get me off this bike. Oh, okay, here's the run. I guess I'll just do it. Instead of, right? So no matter how well you ran, right? No matter how well you trained, no matter how many 20 milers you did, no matter how many great runs you had, if you get off the bike and you don't have your wits about you and you're done with the day, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Matters none, because you're not going to want to do it. And if you're not going to want to do it, you're not going to get it done. Or you can swim enough, you can bike enough, you can run just enough, right? To be fast, to be strong, but to get off the bike, optimistic, with your wits about you, ready to fight, right? Because you may not have done your 20 or 25 milers, or maybe you had a few niggles the last 6 to 8 weeks of your training, the last 10 weeks. You didn't have the perfect long run buildup that you read about, that people post about, but you swam your ass off. It's gonna feel like nothing. You biked a ton. It's going to feel like nothing, just a warm up. But you're going to get off that bike ready to fight. Wits about you, ready to go. One of the first mottos I taught you when we first worked together was, you only got to do it once. That's it. And you can do anything one time. But in order to do it one time, you got to be ready to do it one time. You got to have your energy, you got to have your wits about you, and you got to be ready to fight. That's the person I want. Optimistic, energized, ready, and fresh. And they get off the bike, whether it's a 70.3 or a full. What I don't want is a person who had to get their boxing gloves out at mile 10 or even mile 50, right? Mm-hmm. This is how you should look at it. If you got to get your boxing gloves on the bike before mile 80 or mile 100, it's probably not going to be the run you want. When you go through T2, that should be your walkout song, right? You got your anthem playing, you're walking in, you got your robe on, you got your gloves on, hyped up, you got your manager behind you, massaging your shoulders, you're ready to roll. Got a nice little lather going to get in the ring, running at T2, they're shouting your name, here he is, weight class, whatever, age group, whatever, Mike Terali, boom, mile 1. Now you're ready to go 12 rounds. Right? Every round's 3 miles. I'm getting chills right now. Every mile, I'm not even racing. Every mile, every 3 miles is a round. And you got to last 12. And in order to do that, you got to have the right mentality. What you don't want is to walk into the arena 2 hours before feeling like shit, not energized, bad headspace, because you might as well never get in the ring. Right? And that's just, there's two different kind of camps when it comes to training like that, as the camp that wants to be ready when it matters, and in the camp that maybe wants to be ready when they think it's time, but it's not time yet. And that's where you got to be with your head. That's where you got to be with your body if you want. And you got to be excited, right? You want to be excited and zoned in and ready to have some fun. That's when people perform their best. And that's the kind of situation you put yourself in before race day.
That was awesome, dude. What a great analogy. Yeah, just don't be Tyson to come out and try and throw that knockout in that first round. You got to
don't be biting anybody's ear in the swim either.
Yeah, exactly. Feel those 12 rounds out a little bit as you're going, man, and finish strong, finish with the knockout, man. That's a really good analogy. Yeah, I go back to my first Ironman Chattanooga, and that week I ended up getting like sick, like a head cold, a sore throat and all that shit. And I couldn't do anything. I just rested. And all I did was kind of just, I didn't self-pity. I just tried to do everything I could to get my head straight and get as much good stuff in my body to heal. And I woke up that next day and, that was still my best Ironman. But I think it was a lot because I didn't put too much pressure on myself. And I was like, all right, man, well, you got to be a little cautious here. You got to pull back a little bit. You can't go too crazy. And then, like I said, you just pull it together and you string those 3 days or those 3 events together, and you just have one good event. And man, I just love what you're saying, because it's like, if you're starting to throw punches on that bike, man, and I've definitely been there. And the thing of it is like, I've been there many times probably, and it's not the greatest feeling. And then, but, several of those times I had enough mental fortitude, I guess, to pull that run off. But, like last year I didn't. I went out and I tried to get that bike, and it was just too much for me. And I was tired that morning. I didn't train enough and I didn't sleep very well. And that run turned into like a Rocky movie. It was just like, too many punches were flying, and it was just everything I could do to keep getting myself off the mat. And I pulled it together, but it wasn't pretty, and it's not easy. And I mean, I think about how hard it is though to do what you just said, to come out off that bike and be ready, just be ready. Most people just aren't. And it's just that thing about being a race. You want to get it done quick, and you're not thinking about the big picture. From the minute you get in the water, you're just thinking about that, getting out of the water as fast as you can, getting off the bike as fast as you can. And then you got that behemoth sitting at the end of it. And that's always the tough part. And not many people pull that together like you just articulated.
Because it takes so much patience, right? Yeah. Even like the first round of a boxing match, people don't go for the knockout. They play the long game, right? I don't remember what Ali match it was, but I remember he ended up purposely taking body shots for like the first like 8 or 10 rounds. I mean, it was against Foreman
The rope
to just wear him. What's that?
That was rope-a-dope.
Yeah.
He wore the other guy out.
That wasn't the thrill of Manila.
Yep.
Yeah, he just purposely just let him take body shot to wear him out until finally he got done. And it takes a tremendous amount of patience, but it's also just the attitude. Like I remember, we can end it in a second, but going back to Wisconsin, the year that you and I did it together, I had trained pretty good during the first part of the year, and then Hayden was born. He had a really rough delivery. He was in the NICU for 4 days, and I had like 6 weeks leading up until the race. Everything I did was inside. My run scaled back, and I just kind of went in the race like in the night before. I wasn't feeling too good. He slept like he's still doesn't sleep that great, but I got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Just not that great of a start. But I remember just being really happy and excited for the opportunity. And I think it's actually one of my best results ever. I think 95th overall. What's that?
I think it's your best race.
Yeah, no, it is without a question. I mean, I still ran really well, and I think I was like a 10:39 or something that year, to close to top 10 in my age group. I had a really good day. And I had no expectations going into it because I was so. I think that's another thing when like you're almost kind of like accidentally distracted, like with life, new baby who's like, there wearing, Hayden was wearing his like, those Michael Phelps earphones, his baby like made popular in the 2016 Olympics, rocking those, barely slept, didn't have any idea how the Blazers was going to play out. Never done the course before. All my rides have been on the trainer watching Sons of Anarchy. And it was like, man, I don't know how this thing's going to go. It swam really well, beat few of the pros out of the water, and then it came out a little bit hot on the run, but then had a great day. And was just really, really happy with how the day played out and how I put it together. And I never would have expected it, but I also didn't expect much because of just everything. So I think, again, there's a lot of ways you can play that game, but you got to be patient no matter what kind of races. You got to be patient, and you got to work your plan. And so, if you're heading to your last race block, or even in the taper, or you're, thinking about how do I approach, or you're self-coach and you're trying to figure out how much do I run, how much I do this, remember that and I remind myself of this too, like even just the other day, I'm like, I had 2 weeks left, and I did one of my last long runs, my last long run yesterday morning, and thinking about how much I wanted to extend it. I was like, all right, does it really matter? No, because I know that once I get off the bike, as long as I'm feeling pretty fresh, or, fresh enough, I can make it 13-1, and I can put myself in a place that's very uncomfortable for that period of time. But what I don't want to do is get off the bike already in that space, right? I don't want to be in that space earlier. I want to put myself in that space in my own time, right? By choice, not by lack of, riding enough or swimming enough. So what's the answer? 20 minutes extra on my run today, or making sure I'm in a good position energy-wise for the rest of this week to get in enough swimming and riding to where I can make that decision for myself. The course doesn't make it for me on race day. And that same goes for full, and the same goes for an Ironman. So again, that's what makes the sport so great, right? And also challenging and frustrating, but also really awesome because we learned so many lessons, and hope you all learned a few lessons today.
I hope so too. That was good. Hey,
we should play the Rocky music for the lead out for this podcast.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, we're going to be up at Wisconsin. You and I loosely talked about trying to find a room, either a banquet room or some kind of room at our hotel to have kind of a hangout, meet, greet session type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think we were talking maybe, we're not going to pin it down, but like Friday afternoon, just to give people a loose.
Yes,
like early afternoon Friday.
Yeah, we can talk about a loose little plan, because it's a big weekend, but it's also got a ton of moving parts for a lot of people. You got people getting ready to race on Friday because they race Saturday. Get people on Saturday want to spectate some, but also get ready for their full on Sunday. So Friday is probably gonna be the best day. We'll definitely figure out something. We'll post it up and try to get that out maybe later this week so you guys can plan. But yeah, look for something, probably something minimal like an open water swim meet up on Friday, and then everybody kind of head to the same place. There's no way we can get a table for everybody, but at least head to the same place, talk to each other, get that sense and energized piece of the community, and then maybe be able to kick back and relax somewhere at our hotel for a little bit. Just come by and say hi and meet and see everybody.
Yeah. And I'll try and bring some gear up there in case anybody's looking for it.
Slinging on the corner, man.
Yep. Yep.
All right, man. Well, that's all we got. As always, if you need anything, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching help and assistance, you can click on the coaching tab and look for the personality that fits you best. And if you need anything from Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy.
All right, dude.
That
See you
wraps it
later.
up. 6:12 in the books.
Done and dusted.
See ya.